Welcome, one, and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape live and in living color. It is Thursday, November 2nd, 2023, 7:32 p.m. Central Standard Time on the dot. We are 2 minutes late because my co-host was talking and yammering about this, that, and the other. This is a very special show. I don't think it's, hyperbolic to say it's one of the most unique shows that SB Nation offers. You can listen to the show wherever you get your NFC East blog podcast networks across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch it on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. On Sunday, the Dallas Cowboys will visit the Philadelphia Eagles, which is why we are here. He is Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. I am RJ Ochoa of Blog and the Boys. BLG, happy Thursday night.
It's only fitting that there are two NFC East mixtape episodes in a week where there's such a big game to talk about, and also it doesn't really feel right talking about the entire thing on a Tuesday when we haven't even seen the injury report or anything at that time.
Yeah, we did this last year for the first time, and much like has been discussed throughout the course of this week, we didn't really have a lot of juice to either Cowboys-Eagles matchups last year because Dak Prescott missed the first one, Jalen Hurts missed the second one. So there was kind of a weird intensity, but not really half in, half out, hokey pokey dance. So this is the first one, and you're right. We, normally on the mixtape, we kind of reflect on the week that happened, which we had to do in general. Plus, we had all of the trades from the deadline. Plus, it was Halloween. Plus this, that, and whatever, which is why we're here tonight. While the Pittsburgh Steelers have a 7-0 lead on the Tennessee Titans on Thursday Night Football. Who did you pick in this game?
I picked the Steelers to win and cover that one. I'm not even watching that game, though. I have the Sixers-Raptors game on, so
that sucks for you. Okay, so let's get to our comments. That's part of the fun of this being a live show. We're streaming this on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel because, being frank, it has more subscribers than the Bleeding Green Nation one. So people go subscribe to the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel so that we can do this on that network.
Yeah, I'm sure your Cowboys fans will do that.
Well, I mean, create a burner account so it doesn't affect your algorithm. Or if you're an Eagles fan that, out of loyalty to BLG, forever may he reign. If you came over here, go subscribe to the Leading Your Nation YouTube channel and gather more people to do it so that we, can kind of figure this out. The Lunar Cowboy says, last year we were robbed of Dak versus Jalen. Kevin reminds me that the Rangers are world champs. That was a bummer. Whatever. Anyway, Brandon says, thanks for bringing us the extra mix this week. Brian says that he likes your starter jacket. And Matthew says, yeah, we appreciate the extra pod. By the way, the Lunar Cowboy says, JK, we all love LG. Caleb says, go Birds. So we at least have that. We have some special friends that are going to be joining us tonight. We would be disingenuous, Brandon, if we pretended like we were the first podcast that did this, that, took a Cowboys guy and an Eagles guy and talked about the NFC East. We may call it the NFC East Mixtape, and we may have coined the term NFC Beast, but we are not the first duo to do a show like this.
Yeah, but we're the first one to do all four and then invent the name NFC Beast, like you said.
That's true. Aidan Powers and Kevin Messina from the Birds versus Boys podcast will stop by in about 10 minutes. We'll kind of chop things up with them. Our great friend, Rob Stats Guerrera, who's kind of an impartial person, will stop by because, generally speaking, the crowd, those of you who watch and listen to the show, love stats. We love stats. So he'll come in, and I imagine, Brandon, the votes between the four of us are going to be pretty tied in terms of who we think is going to win this game on Sunday. Hey, by the way, Shire, I hope I'm getting that correct, says the Eagles guy is extremely annoying. So already on brand, Brandon. However, David says that RJ is my favorite Eagles fan. So we are each being
I think you're more annoying than I am.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I think it's true.
I don't hear that I'm annoying from people other than from Eagles fans. So that's the only group of people who call me annoying. I like Brian's point, says pay the like tax. If you want to like the video, go ahead. If you don't want to contaminate your algorithm with the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel, please, if you're a Cowboys fan, go to the Bleeding Green Nation podcast network and leave a rating. 5-star rating, write a review. That helps them out greatly. Anything you can do to promote them. We are all a family. We may hate each other, but we all technically work for the same team. By the way, shout out to Mr. Gowton, says EAGLES Eagles, my great friend,
Thanks,
Mr. Gowton. So, Brandon, let's get to our first kind of talking point, and we'll wait unless you have any other, jib jabbering you want to do.
Shout out to my mom, also watching, I'm sure, with my dad. So just wanted to give my parents a shout out. But no, let's get into it. It's a huge matchup.
We have 5 kind of talking points that will frame the discussion around tonight. Of course, we can go in any number of directions. But number 1, what are you most confident will go right for your team? We certainly would love to hear from people in the comment section. By the way, we will be podcasting this show as well. So if you're listening, you're not part of the live crowd. So that's your fault. But Brandon, I will give you the floor. What are you most confident will go right for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday afternoon?
A.J. Brown.
NFC Offensive Player of the Month, A.J. Brown.
Yes, he had, 700 yards in the month and 5 touchdowns, 40 catches, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns in the month of October. It's pretty insane. I actually came across a statistic today that I thought was interesting as it relates to the Eagles-Cowboys matchup. A.J. Brown has gained 432 yards against man coverage this season, which is 158 more than the next closest receiver. A.J. Brown will face a Cowboys defense on Sunday that has played man coverage at the second highest rate this season. So, ipso facto, A.J. Brown will have a big game against the Cowboys because he's unstoppable right now. And also, he seems to be able to especially exploit their style of defense.
I think this is a good one and very fair. It's a bummer for me because my take on AJ Brown, my takes really have done nothing except age.
Yeah, why don't you remind everyone?
It is a live show, and so in the spirit of having a good time, I will. I made the case that the Eagles lost, or was it? I think it was that the Titans won the AJ Brown trade. That was how I phrased it. I have since apologized for that. I wrote a letter. And even still at the beginning of the season, and it was looking okay for the first couple of weeks. I argued that this would kind of be the Devontae Smith breakout year, that maybe we would see a regression from AJ statistically. And then he went Super Saiyan and continues to go Super Saiyan. Conan, our great friend, says AJ Brown is going for 150. Wow. I don't know. As John Wick makes me sweaty notes, Dallas has yet to give up over 100 yards to any one wide receiver or running back. That is notable. But if anyone can break this streak, the way I feel about that is if anyone can break the streak, it's AJ Brown. Do you feel like if anyone can break AJ's streak, it is the Cowboys?
I don't think anyone can stop him right now. Like, I don't. I mean, I've seen, again, I go back to the Commanders game where they literally had perfect coverage on him and multiple reps, mostly those touchdowns there. And he just out muscles them, out jumps them, beats them anyway. He's like doubled up. Coverage is perfect. He can still beat them. Like, it's just, I don't really know what you do. I mean, maybe there's a case to be made. The Cowboys devote so many resources to him that it'll be like Devontae Smith, who has a huge game because they just really try to shut down AJ Brown at all costs. And I'm not saying just because AJ Brown has a big game means like they definitely win. I think it's possible he gets his either way in a win or a loss. But no, I don't think anyone except, I mean, the way you're slowing down AJ Brown is if you're like, getting such a good pass rush on Jalen Hurts that he literally cannot get the ball to AJ Brown. But I don't think you're just like locking up AJ Brown one-on-one with any defender right now.
I think that's fair. AJ last year in the game in Philly, where Jalen was his quarterback, had 5 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. Kind of a weird game, though. The final score was 26-17, but, didn't require massive statistical effort. Then on Christmas Eve with Gardner Minshew, had 6 catches for 103 yards. If I recall, had the kind of big one at the very beginning of that game where it looked like, it was going to be a very long day. And there were a lot of points scored, obviously, but that was kind of a big Devontae game as well. Had more fantasy production, at least.
AJ also kind of got like a little bit banged up in that one, like not enough where he missed time afterwards, but you could see he got up weird. I think the turf monster got him a little bit, and he looked like a little not totally right in that game, and yet still had a huge performance.
I think that, the ism that is said a lot is always like the Bill Belichick, oh man, we're just going to focus on your best weapon and we're going to take it away and we're going to make somebody else beat us. I do wonder if it's maybe more worth it, not just from like a sanity standpoint, but from a practicality one, for Dan Quinn to say, let AJ go off. Like, not like right. In the sense of like, let AJ score 1 billion touchdowns, but like, this is a fool's errand to try to, right. Slow down AJ Brown, especially without Trayvon Diggs. Let's not, overwhelm ourselves with what we're trying to do from an external standpoint. So I think that's fair. Do you want to hear my answer?
No. Let's go on to the next question. No, I'm kidding. Of course. Yeah. What are you most confident about?
By the way, Aidan is in our lobby. We're waiting on Kevin to get here. So we'll get to our second topic with them. They're waiting very patiently. But what I am most confident will go right for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm glad that Aidan will be able to hear this, and I'm sad that Kevin won't, is Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is playing at an elite level right now. Played at an extremely elite level last year on Christmas Eve, the lone time that he played the Eagles. Obviously, last season, he didn't play in that first game, as everybody well knows. Dak Prescott, as a reminder, on Christmas Eve, 27 of 35, 347 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the interception, at the very beginning off the tip ball. That was horrible, but managed to overcome it, obviously. Dak was incredible on Sunday against the Los Angeles Rams. And while the same statistical production wasn't there a few weeks back against the Chargers on Monday Night Football, he was the will of the offense. I mean, he is what kept them alive. I know that you caught some heat for bagging on him for the missed throw to Tony Pollard in that particular game. But that was kind of his lone misstep and has been his lone misstep over the last 2 weeks. I know he had the interception against the Rams. Fine, whatever. I mean, it was tip ball. We can sit here and debate that, blah, blah, blah. But he does own the Eagles. Whether or not you or any other Eagles fan want to admit that, he has had a lot of success against this particular team, against this cast of talent. So I'm very confident that Dak Prescott's going to show up.
It's really I don't have a great feel for what the Eagles defense is going to do this weekend because I just watched them shut down Tua and the Dolphins offense like no other team has this year, only to then the next week get torched by Sam Howell. So I don't really have a great expectation if this, I could see it either way.
Do you think it's fair to say that Dak Prescott owns the Eagles 7-3 against them?
Well, I mean, that's not really like the most fully accurate record because there are games in there where there's 2 games where he started against Eagles back.
I'll say this:
started against
there have been 2 games of consequence that Dak has lost to the Eagles. I think that's fair. There was the 2019 game in Philly that Carson Wentz played hurt in, and we've talked about a billion times. Dak played very poorly in that game. That's completely fair to say. And there was the 2017 game at AT&T Stadium that I've mentioned many times was at the time the worst loss in AT&T Stadium's history. Other than that, I mean, any game of, because we've talked about this many times, like the end of regular season games and blah, blah, blah. I mean, any game of consequence, Dak has not only won, but shown up in high capacity.
And who was the quarterback for most of those games? It was Carson Wentz.
Is Dak
Prescott was the quarterback for one of those games?
Was Carson Wentz guarding Amari Cooper? Like, I mean, why is this significant?
Well, I'm just saying it's a different equation when you have a quarterback on the other side that is gone.
If you want to play that game, the lone time that they played Jalen Hurts, they destroyed them. I mean,
that is true, and that's also a very different version of Jalen Hurts. I think
the goalpost moving on that has been really funny all week. Like, oh well, we don't want to count that one because we don't.
No, it counts, but like, do you think that same Jalen Hurts was the same guy who played in the Super Bowl this past year? Like, that's not the same player.
Is the Jalen Hurts who played in the Super Bowl the Jalen Hurts who's playing for the Eagles right now? Because I would argue that that's
I think he is. Oh, I mean, I'm not saying every game is like that, but I'm saying he's that mold of a player. He's certainly much closer to that than he was.
To say he's the Super Bowl version of himself, but not the 2021 Week 3 version that lost to the Cowboys. That does feel like.
I'm not saying he's giving you the Super Bowl version every week, but I'm saying like who he is now as a player. He's certainly reached a different height than where he was at that point early in that season.
Conan says worried about CeeDee. CeeDee Lamb is coming off of a 2-game
stretch. You didn't pick that because I would have picked that for you.
I don't know about that. I mean, CeeDee's cooking with gas right now, but we'll see if it winds up holding. Kevin, by the way, says that you're moving the goalpost so much. It must be the reason Brett Maher stopped being able to make extra points. We don't have to take any strays at Brett Maher.
What goalpost am I moving?
Well, he added a little earlier, said Brandon, I don't want to count all the games because it makes me feel better. That is the mentality you have when a quarterback owns you. So
that's really not true. I'm just saying when you're going up against Gardner Minshew in week 18 and the Eagles aren't even playing their starters, that's a weak win to give.
But now we're picking that game when we're isolating the games that we want to in particular moments. But okay,
saying, that's not why. How is that not like that's not like picking and choosing? It's extremely relevant. You should also take out the game where he lost to the Eagles in week 17 and 2016.
That's why I said every game of consequence he has won except for 2017 at AT&T Stadium and 2019 in Philly. Matthew, by the way, notes that in 2021, Nick Sirianni tried to get into a shootout with Dallas when we should have been a running team too.
I mean, even if they tried to do that still, I think that team was not properly equipped. I mean, they didn't have the talent. They have AJ Brown now. Like, they did not have AJ Brown then. That's a big difference. They had Devontae Smith in his third game ever. Jalen Reagor was starting for them. Like,
we don't need to talk about Jalen Reagor. There's no need to bring up Jalen Reagor's name ever. Let's bring in our very special guests, Aidan Powers and Kevin Messina from the Birds versus Boys podcast. We completely and totally ripped off their idea for a podcast and do it every single Wednesday. KMS, Aidan, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry about the Phillies, because that is a team that you two share in common.
Sorry about the Astros.
Yeah. I don't think you are. I don't believe that either of you are sorry.
Do you think that the league is sorry that they could have had a rematch between two big media markets and instead ended up with D-backs Rangers and nobody watching? I feel like we can at least take solace in that. Allies in that.
I think so. I've told Brandon this. I don't know who I would have rooted for, but if the Phillies had won, I think the MLB would have been happy, but I would have been very torn, like individually. It would have been a very complicated, emotional ride for me. But
Aidan said to me today, can you imagine if the Phillies had won the World Series last night and then the city of Philadelphia would have a World Series parade on Friday leading in to Cowboys Eagles? I don't think the city survives the weekend.
And it's good weather. It's 60+ degree weather in November. You cannot beat it. It would probably be an apocalypse.
Well, this isn't a Phillies podcast. If anybody wants to listen to one, they can check out Hitting Season with John Stolness. John does a great job at BGN Radio as well. But everyone should also check out the Birds versus Boys podcast. KMS, when you first saw the NFC East Mixtape, were you offended? Did you feel like we did rip you off?
Offended? No, because I was happy it was you guys that were doing it. But at the same time, we were like, wait, that's kind of like us a little bit. I flattered, maybe, I guess.
Aidan, a year ago, you two were kind enough to have us on, and Brandon had one of the most amazing takes that I've ever heard. He said that it brought him more joy when the Cowboys lost than when the Eagles won. Do you share that sentiment? Because KMS and I had laughed at that. And so, I'm just curious if
I don't think those are the exact words that I said.
I have two witnesses that are on the stand that I think will say those were the exact words. But
you're quoting that verbatim.
If only we had a producer that could go back and find the tape.
We'll find it. We'll document it. I do not share that. I think I'm above you guys. Like, you got to make an NFC championship for me to care about you guys at this point. My focus is 7-1, get to 8-1, get the 1 seed again, and get back to the Super Bowl.
Well,
this week I care about you losing, but that's about it.
Yeah, my point is it's more enjoyable of an experience because when the Eagles win, it's great, but when they lose, it's horrible. And it's like when you watch the Cowboys play, and it's like if they lose, that's great, and if they win, it's like okay, well that's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. When the Eagles lose, it's the end of the world. So
it's more what it's like to lose. So you enjoy the fact that we are going through that pain. Is that more the enjoyment for you?
I guess that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's like because when your team loses, I was thinking about this today, and like the idea of your team going 14-3 sounds amazing, right? Like that sounds like a great thing, but you feel every single one of those losses and feel like they're not easier just because you're 14-3. It's just the same thing as being like 3-14 in terms of just like that terrible pain you have to sit with after a loss. But anyway, I don't need to go beyond this.
It sounds like you doubled down on the take that you said that you didn't have, but again, neither here nor there. Aidan, let's start with you. Our second bullet point of the night, we've been kind of going through general sort of topics and questions. We talked about were you most confident would go right for your team. Brandon said AJ Brown for the Eagles. I said Dak Prescott for the Cowboys, but we would like to hear from each of you on this question. What are you most worried will go wrong for your team? So Aidan, on behalf of the Philadelphia Eagles, what is the Achilles heel?
Situational awareness, using Kenneth Gainwell as a red zone back and having 2 fumbles within the 5-yard line last week. You can get away with that against the Commanders, and they still scored 38. But this is a Cowboys team who's been feasting on teams and blowing some teams out this year by forcing turnovers. Kevin brought it up today. DaRon Bland has the same amount of touchdowns as CeeDee Lamb this year. And that's not a knock on CeeDee Lamb. That's just how incredible the DaRon Bland stat is, that he has 3 touchdowns. So to me, situational awareness and putting yourself in bad situations that could get a Cowboys team back into the game. That is what I'm worried about the most.
Brandon, is that fair?
I don't disagree with that.
By the way, I feel really bad for Kenneth Gainwell. I feel like he has become like a subject of vitriol. Because like y'all hate him now. Like he's the new Jonathan Gannon. Like there has to be a poster boy for everyone's hatred.
To be fair, I do not hate him. I think he has a role. Good pass catcher, good change of pace guy.
Yeah.
Probably don't use him as the red zone back when you have DeAndre Swift running people over. Boston Scott's been effective. Maybe throw it to AJ Brown. I don't know. He's like the 6th best option down there. That's my whole thing.
It's incredibly frustrating how they're using him. It's like I think it's something like 4 out of 17 plays have in the red zone for Kenny Gainwell are positive EPA, whereas like 13 out of 18, whatever it is for like DeAndre Swift. It's just like one guy is so much clearly better in these key situations. In any case, the biggest thing I guess that's been worrying me in this matchup is specifically the Eagles' weakness in the slot. They had lost Devontae Maddox for the season in week 2. After that, they tried moving Drayton Bradbury into the slot. They signed Bradley Roby, who's likely going to miss this game. He hasn't been able to practice this week. So they're kind of just trying to piece it together there. They had Sidney Brown playing there last week. He's never really done that. He's a rookie safety. Eli Ricks, an undrafted rookie free agent. He's been playing snaps there in a rotation. So the fact that the Cowboys can put CD in the slot and have him go up against, I don't even know who, honestly, he's going to be playing there right now. That worries me.
Okay. K-Mess, on the Dallas side of things, what are you most worried about? For what it's worth, let's see, where was it here? I've lost it. Here we go. John Wick Makes Me Sweaty suggested the Cowboys tackle situation. Obviously, Tyron Smith hasn't practiced yet this week and missed last week's game against the Rams.
Yeah, that's a big fear. Obviously, the Tyron Smith, what's going to happen at left tackle, even the interior going against Jalen Carter. But I'm going to say 2 words here, Devontae Smith. We know A.J. Brown is on a tear right now, right? 6 straight games of 125 yards per game. I told Aidan that Dan Quinn should just have the number 124 up on the board this week. Just keep him under 125. He's going to get his, right? We're going to bracket him. But what is this team on defense going to do against Devontae Smith? It's not going to be Jordan Lewis. Are they going to kick Deron Bland in there? I love Deron Bland, but we kind of saw what Keenan Allen did with those double moves. I don't want to see Devontae Smith doing that against them. So what they're going to do against Devontae Smith, because like I said, A.J. Brown's going to eat. He's going to get his, but Devontae Smith can kill you with 2 catches down the field for a combined 98 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that terrifies me.
I think that's fair. And that's what we were kind of talking about. I do worry that there will be almost too much focus on AJ Brown, and it will be this matter of like, hey, okay, 124, like that's a win. It's like, well, that's not a win if Devontae Smith has 2 catches for 98 yards, to your point. And Devontae almost killed the Cowboys last year on Christmas Eve. And you can, that's the problem with the Eagles, is there are so many weapons, Kenneth Gainwell among them, that you have to, consider and obviously taken into the equation of it all. I think that's really fair, Kevin. But if I'm being completely honest, and this isn't necessarily just a worry for this game, but kind of for the future of the Cowboys, not even across the rest of the season. But it was what the Lunar Cowboy has said here, said almost worried about them running right at Micah like last year. They took him out of the game. Micah Parsons is an incredibly special player. But Philly and Jonathan Gannon, again, wrote the book on how to vanquish him. And Jonathan Gannon did it again when the Cowboys visited the Cardinals. And I love Micah Parsons, and Micah loves to talk. And Micah,
why did Jonathan Gannon know it the first time? He's the Eagles' defensive coordinator.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
so the Eagles' defensive coordinator took Micah Parsons out of the game when the Cowboys played the Eagles.
I'm saying Jonathan Gannon understood the book. I misspoke when I said he wrote the book, but he took the book very well, obviously. And so, it was an exposing of Micah Parsons last year in Philadelphia that Jonathan Gannon seemed to be the only person to learn from. Was, I guess, the point I was making.
Gotcha.
And it is troubling that exists. And I mean, I think the Cowboys were so committed to Micah just like being this like monster last year in Philly, and it just didn't work. And the person that can kill you the most, and that is not, whether it's Shane Steichen or Brian Johnson or whoever, Jonathan Gannon, it's Jalen Hurts. I mean, if Jalen Hurts is floating outside of the pocket, like that's what really worries me. Devontae Smith or AJ Brown be damned. Like Jalen Hurts on the move is probably my worst nightmare for the Cowboys, because Micah Parsons can't affect that. He can't win that foot race. I don't know if that makes you feel better, Brandon.
Well, we don't know if Jalen Hurts will be able to be on the move because he's not really moving around so well right now. I think he can do it more than not at all. It's like, because there was a conversion last week. It was like 3rd and 7 early in the game where Jalen Hurts was able to get out of the pocket and run for the first down. I think he can, move if he has to. But I don't think they want to do it all game long unless there's somehow been a ton of progress from this past week to this week. But yeah, I think that's a huge element going into this game, is that the Eagles might not have like their full run game in full force because of Hurts's limited mobility.
That 3rd and 7 was crazy too, because he looked slow and still converted it.
Yes.
So I have no idea in my mind if he can beat Micah Parsons to the edge based on that play and based on how last week went. But I think it's definitely a point of concern. Like, if you're in Philadelphia right now, I don't think we're like overly confident in him using his legs to extend plays right now.
What's the
which means he'll
general
find a way to
confidence?
run for 75 yards against
Right. Brandon has talked about this a lot. Aidan, what's your general confidence in Hurts right now? With 10 being like, I trust him with my life and my house, and 1 being like Donovan McNabb today. I mean, like, where are you at?
Probably like a 9.2. I think there's been some turnover issues, but all
like
in
a
all,
little bit higher than Kevin Cobb.
Well, yeah, just slightly higher than Kevin Cobb and just like a notch above the Mark Sanchez era back in like 2013. So that's where I'm at. I'm pretty confident just in him, and just I don't think anything really phases him mentality wise. I'll go to battle with him any day. And I think the weapons around him, I trust them too. So I'm worried about the knee situation because it's not just the running, it's the extending of the plays that he does. And he was able to do it in the Dolphins game, that 1 4th down where he kind of avoided the sack from Bradley Chubb, got to the outside, threw the ball downfield. That's a huge aspect too. So that worries me in terms of health. But in terms of like Jalen Hurts overall, I'm really, really confident in him as a quarterback.
Kevin, you can tell me if you agree or disagree. But with regards to the 3 games that Dallas has played against Hurts since the beginning of last year, I mean, like going into this game, this is probably the least afraid of him that I've been. And I don't say that in any kind of disrespectful way. And it isn't just the injury, it's the turnovers. Like this is we're not like, 3 games in and he's turned the ball over 6 times. Like we're 8 games in for the Eagles and he's got 11 turnovers. I mean, it feels like Dak last year, which is why it's funny and it's hilarious and the jokes kind of write themselves. But again, I'm not saying that like I'm not afraid of Jalen Hurts at all, but I was much more afraid of him entering the game in Philadelphia last year.
And I mentioned this on Birds vs. Boys this week too. And Aidan, make sure I say it the right way because I know it confused your little brain today. Jalen Hurts has the 11th most turnover-worthy plays in the NFL this year, and Dak Prescott is 27th. Aidan, that means he has a lot less than Jalen Hurts has. So I would kind of agree with you on that. The tush push still scares me. His ability to move still scares me. His ability to just find ways to win and make plays when he needs to still scares me. But I would agree the combination of his turnover issues and the way the Dallas defense turns the ball over is very advantageous to me, which I am excited about. But then that could make me fall on my face at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go, Brandon, back to your point about obsessing over the Cowboys more than the Eagles. Our third point here of discussion is to define how big of a game this is for your team. The Eagles obviously have the NFL's best record, so you can argue just by nature it would be less meaningful for the Cowboys, although it's a home game, so you want to take care of those. Like you can take this any direction you want. BLG, the floor is yours.
I mean, it's huge in terms of the Eagles win this game. They're 8-1 entering the bye, feeling good about themselves. They have a multiple game cushion over the Cowboys at 5-3 at that point. You're feeling pretty good, even though you have a really tough stretch coming up ahead here with the Chiefs after the bye and the Bills and the 49ers and the Seahawks and then the Cowboys again down in Dallas. But to get at least 1 win over the Cowboys is really big for them. It still keeps them very much alive and if not favored for the 1 seed. The Lions are going to make a run at that because they have a really easy schedule, and assuming they don't fall apart, they're going to be in that conversation. So it's really big from the standpoint of not just the division, but also potentially getting the 1 seed again.
Aidan.
I think it's an enormous game. We could sit here and do the spiel about how this is because it's heated rivals and 2 fan bases that hate each other. But in reality, it's huge for the Eagles because in May, if you would have seen this schedule and the gauntlet they have in the middle and told the fan base you could be 8-1 going into your bye with a 2.5 game lead in the division, with a win over the Cowboys going into the bye, everybody would have signed up for this. So if you you'd be the 1 seed in the NFC. So if all of those things come true and you win that game, there is no complaints. This is a 10 out of 10 success for the first half of the season. So I think it's an enormous game to win this and go to the bye at that pace.
Kevin, the Lunar Cowboy, this applies to both teams, says whoever wins this game definitely leaves you sitting pretty. The losing team will definitely have to fight a lot more, especially with the upcoming games. You and I know very well, last year it was so annoying, like, because the Cowboys were surviving, getting Dak back, and it just was like, man, the Eagles need to slip up, and it just never happened. And then the Cowboys dropped the games in Green Bay and in Jacksonville, and the further you set yourself back, the more difficult it is to make up ground once December comes.
And that's kind of what they're already having to do, right? Because they slipped up against Arizona. We were joking about when Dobbs got traded this week, and I saw the Arizona's record. I'm like, oh, they got 1 win. Who is that against? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. So when you slip up in a game like that, you're already behind and you already need to make up. And you don't want the Eagles going not only 8-1, but 3-0 in the division already. And then you'd be 1-1 in the division. They're going into their bye, feeling good heading into that gauntlet. Instead, they're have a loss in the division, 2 losses on the season going into their bye. Then they have to play the Chiefs, the Bills, the Niners, and you again. It is a massive game. And getting a win in the division on the road in Philadelphia is even bigger for the confidence boost for the team.
I liked what you said, Aidan, about how this, like, you can make whatever about the rivalry, and I guess that's like partly a factor. Although I don't know that anybody on these teams like hates one another, but the reality is like whoever plays for the team, whatever, like whether or not they do hate each other, like the reality is they are in the same division. So like wins against one another inherently are significantly more valuable. The wins against the Giants or the Commanders, like for the Cowboys or Eagles, are inherently more valuable because again of like tie-breaking procedures and things like that. And so yeah, I think like we all agree, like if our team were to get this win, it's like Nas. It's the Nas boost on this ride. But the loss is really devastating. I do think I think you would agree, KMS, and so I'll ask you, Brandon. I think that a loss is more deflating for the Eagles because I think a loss for the Cowboys kind of puts them back in the mindset they were in a year ago, which you could call it a loser mentality. Like, oh, fine, we'll just kind of chase this wild card and hope Philly slips up. But if Philly loses, like we all said, you lose the game at home to Dallas, and then you have to sit on that for 2 weeks, and then the bye, or the bye, obviously, but then the gauntlet that includes the road game in Dallas. I do think that the feeling of chasing might be just a bit larger for the Eagles because of the extenuating circumstances.
And definitely undoes a lot of goodwill in terms of like, okay, the Eagles are 7-2 at that point, but then, and the Cowboys are what,
6-2.
6-2. But then again, it's really like, because the Cowboys are going to beat the Giants when the Eagles are on their bye in week 10. So then it's like, okay, all of a sudden the Cowboys go in first place. And meanwhile, the Eagles have to go through this stretch. And like you said, I think the key point is about the home, away advantage in terms of, I didn't even realize it until you pointed it out on the episode earlier this week that the Cowboys have won 11 straight at home. So just to merely assume that the Eagles can definitely go down to Dallas later in the season. I'm not saying they can't win, but like it's a very tough task when you have a very winnable game at home, at least in comparison. So you really have to take care of business here.
I would say though that just the visual, I can see it in my head of a difference between 6-2 and 5-3. I don't know why, but just 5-3, just when you have a chance to be 6-2.
Y'all talked about like had the Phillies obviously won the World Series and then the parade, like the Rangers did win the World Series, and so obviously there's a lot of people who root for them both. If that the parade is obviously tomorrow. If that rides into the Cowboys winning at Philadelphia, I mean, November would be, and because after this, and we've talked about it, and I know y'all have too, like Cowboys get the Giants at home and then the Panthers on the road before Thanksgiving. Like it would be, an easier month, and obviously December's coming for them, but the vibes would be higher than they've probably ever been in the, Mike McCarthy era, I think is safe to say, but, watch them kind of slip it home to the Giants or lose in Carolina.
I need that parade route to just circle AT&T Stadium and just continue to show the championship trophy to Jerry and Steven and say, your irrelevance is going up a little bit here, boys. Change something.
By the way, KMS, I didn't totally like the 6-2, 5-3 thing. Like I understand you're passionate about that. That missed me a little bit, but Melissa said good point to that. So Melissa agrees that 5-3 just kind of looks ugly. So
it does look ugly.
You've got somebody with you on that
Melissa.
trend. I thought that this question would maybe cause the most dissension, which is what I wanted to ask when you two were here. So KMS, I'll start with you. Your team, yours is obviously the Dallas Cowboys, absolutely has the edge at where? You can say anything you want.
I think the receiving core against that secondary right now. I saw a fake report coming out of Philadelphia that the Cowboys wide receivers were laughing at the secondary of the Eagles and they're at the complex and it's bulletin board. Just shut up. What it is I think they have a chance to attack the secondary of the Eagles right now, the way that they're playing. And I think they need to attack them with speed, right? I want Turpin on the field. I want CD on the field. I want Pollard in the slot, and I want Brandon Cooks. I want MG on the sideline, Tolbert on the sideline. Just continue to attack them with speed and double moves, because I think with that and your confidence in Dak Prescott, Aidan said this may have to be a game where it's old school, sling it around the yard. Stop banging your head against the wall, against that defensive line. Sling it and use speed. So that's my confidence, is this receiving core against that secondary right now.
Would you fight against that, Aidan or BLG, that like the Eagles secondary has a chance against the Cowboys receivers this week, or are you willing to kind of surrender on that point?
I think it's the fear of the unknown because we haven't seen the secondary play together much. It's the first time this year that they'll have the same secondary in back-to-back games, which is kind of astounding that we're halfway through the season. So I would agree with the point because of that, like, fear of the unknown. Like, I really don't know what the secondary is, and it's pretty dependent on like a guy they traded for last week, Reed Blankenship taking the next step, and an undrafted rookie in Eli Ricks. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of gray area with that unit.
Guy they traded for has 3 career interceptions against Dak Prescott. Kevin Byard has seemingly had his number. For what it's worth.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
Yeah, that's, for what it's worth, I guess we'll all say.
It's not nothing.
Brandon, what are you most confident that the Eagles have the edge at?
I mean, I could be, silly here and say edge rusher, but I think defensive interior. I feel really good about Jalen Carter. I think the Eagles might. I don't know where he's fully at with his health. He's been on the injury report as full participation, but it's a back issue, so that doesn't really make me feel great. But assuming he truly is good to go and play a lot of snaps, I think they might kind of up his snap count this week because this is a really important game, and they've been really going heavy on that defensive tackle rotation, probably to a point where they feel like they can especially manage that against opponents who are not really as high quality, some of the ones they've faced so far. But with this being such a big game, I think they're going to try to unleash Jalen Carter a little bit more. And he's been a monster this year. He has been pretty much unstoppable in very limited playing time. And I think he is going to give that Cowboys interior a lot of trouble. And that's especially key to me in this game because I don't know if the edge rushers are going to have time to win, because I think Dak is going to get the ball out quick. He's been doing that a lot this season. You've seen that with his yards per attempt and the deep shots going down and being more efficient, getting the ball out fast. I think the only way the Eagles can try to counter that is with a good interior rush.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I'm not going to protest against that too much, just because the Cowboys' offensive line has been really not dependable this year in a lot of different ways, and it's not just the rotational players. Yeah, it's hard. They've gotten worked in different ways. And you mentioned, I know you're both talking about this is only the second game in the row where the Eagles have had their full out secondary or whatever. The Cowboys have had their fully intended offensive line, start to finish 2 games this year, and it hasn't really made much of an impact. And it hasn't been a sizable difference. And so I think that's fair. Aidan, same question.
I'm going to extend it a little bit. Can I just say the entire defensive line of the Eagles versus the offensive line against the Cowboys? I'm surprised neither of us, BLG or me, went with the Philly offensive line. But I just think in general that unit, one, Jalen Carter being healthy would be awesome. He's been dominant. Hassan Reddick, who it's so crazy. He kept saying, I have this cast on. I don't feel like myself. I can't get after the quarterback the way I like. Then he's gotten the cast off. He's had 6.5 sacks since. Josh Sweat is putting up better numbers than Micah Parsons this year. So as a unit, I think it's going to be really important to take a lot of pressure off of that secondary. You mentioned Dak Prescott kind of getting the ball out quickly. I think they should do that again. And part of this thing with the defensive line, they've been so stout against the run. It's been a struggle to get Tony Pollard going. So you don't figure it would be this week. So that makes it so they're going to be thrown a lot, turn this into a Big 12 shootout. So get to the quarterback as quick as you can if they're going to try to get the ball out quick.
I think these are all good answers. I thought that we would fight a little bit more, but everything's kind of agreeable. Everything's kind of chalk. My answer is the weirdest, so maybe it will incite a little bit more. Y'all all had kind of more specific things. Where I think the Cowboys absolutely have the edge is in capitalizing on turnover-worthy plays. We know that Jalen Hurts is certainly prone to them. I recognize this is a vague thing, but the Cowboys have had a propensity to do that, not just this year, but basically the entire Dan Quinn era. And so if there is a moment, if there is a tip ball, if there is an opportunity, I fully trust them to find a way to take advantage of that to a degree that it will help the team. And I feel like they're going to have to. They're going to have to, steal some points. They're going to have to flip the field. They're going to have to find ways to put the offense in situations. Because while I do trust Dak Prescott a lot, he can be very good in this game and still, struggle because the Eagles' defense is very, very talented, as we've obviously discussed throughout the course of this evening. So,
Aidan mentioned that today on Birds vs. Boys too, saying you could look through the stat line as an Eagles fan at the end of this game, be like, love Jalen's stats. AJ got his. They got sacks. How the hell did we lose this game? And it was 2 turnovers, a blocked punt, couple stupid things like that just flip the game that the Cowboys take advantage of.
Yeah, special teams.
I think there are some sacks, obviously, but even some incompletions that aren't turnovers but have the same effect. And the Cowboys have been very good, obviously, at forcing those situations. So I trust them to kind of, hit the notes when they have to in that particular capacity. Before we get Kevin and Aidan out of here, we're going to go around the bend with a question from the crowd. Lonely Catman. So maybe we get a second cat in this particular situation. It says, what are some unexpected storylines no one is talking about? Brandon, you can go first, so our guests have a moment to think.
I mean, I need some time to think. Why don't you go first?
I will say the kicking matchup. There was a moment in time where both Brandon Aubrey and Jake Elliott had more points by themselves, each individually, than the New York Giants did as a team. We talked about A.J. Brown, who won NFC Offensive Player of the Month. Not that it's of the same capacity, but Brandon Aubrey won NFC Special Teams Player of the Month. He's literally tied the record for most consecutive field goals made to start an NFL career. If he makes a field goal, if he makes his first field goal, rather, he'll literally break the record. It will literally be his all to himself. And if he misses, then Eagles fans can say forever, like, oh, you had made them all until you showed up here. And in a game where points are going to be incredibly valuable, he has been one of the most valuable members of the entire Dallas Cowboys team. He has quite literally been the most consistent and dependable part of the Dallas Cowboys operation. So you're not going to score touchdowns on every single drive. You're going to have to kick some field goals, and you're going to have to trust that that's enough. And so, yeah, I would say the kickers in this game. Boom. Look at that, Brandon. It was that easy.
I got mine if nobody else.
All right, K-Mess, show Brandon how it's done, please.
I'm going to say the tight ends for both. Everybody's talking A.J. Brown. I talked about Devontae Smith. CeeDee Lamb's been getting his. Brandon Cooks is starting to heat up. But Dak Prescott and Ferguson have slowly been really putting it together, right? You see their chemistry. He had the touchdown last week, a pass that I feel like was missed 4 times this season in the end zone, finally connected on it. And Dallas Goedert, I think, arguably could be a top 3 tight end in this league, but again, is being outshadowed with what A.J. Brown is doing. And I think both of these players could have a huge impact on this game with the attention the defenses are going to be having against the receivers in A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb.
An excellent answer. The Cowboys side of things really just outperforming y'all. Aidan, are you ready? Or do you need more time? I mean, like,
I've got mine. Yeah, I think I've got mine. I'm worried about, I kind of brought this up, so I won't use it, but special teams, I am worried. We don't have the best punting situation. You guys just blocked a punt. We've seen block kicks, everything like that. I think it's a better special teams unit. I'll say unexpected storyline is the production from wide receiver 3 for the Eagles. Quez Watkins just seems to make a one bonehead play a game. He's turned into a ghost. They put in Olamide Zaccheaus. Didn't really give you anything. Now Julio Jones is here and caught a touchdown last week. So what can we expect from him? How does he boost this offense? Everyone's been talking about A.J. Brown. They're going to try to bracket him. I don't know if that works, but what are you going to get from that third wide receiver if this turns into some crazy shootout?
It does seem possible that Julio is just not I don't know if a dominant game even, but a dominant stretch. It feels like that could happen conceivably. Maybe it's just a drive where it's oh my gosh, there's vintage Julio Jones. I don't know if it's in this game, but I think at some point in the season that could happen. I'm going to go.
His hamstring falls off his leg.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not going to last, but there would be a moment before it goes to smithereens. I'm going to go really in the weeds and say, so on the Eagles injury report past 2 days, Boston Scott has been listed as.
I thought about this too.
Okay, you Aidan knows where I'm going. Due to personal reasons. I don't know what that's about. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. I don't know if he's going to be able to play or not this weekend. If he's not, the Eagles would have to then activate Rashad Penny, who's really not played this year. And what if they actually got him involved? And what if they've been saving him for a big game? What if for a Dallas running defense that has been able to be exploited at times this year, certainly by the 49ers. What if they just busted out Rashad Penny randomly and he had a big game on the ground?
That would be very funny if he was just a ghost for 2 months and then shows up against the Cowboys and has a game like he did last year.
Imagine pulling out a veteran who'd played forever in the NFL and having them make a significant play against a team, a 3rd and 30 conversion or something weird like that. I mean, I don't know. That would be really cool if that happened for one of the teams in this match.
Won that game and did what?
I mean, what did the Eagles do?
Making the Super Bowl is better than
they beat the Daniel Jones Giants
NFC
and the Christian McCaffrey 49ers. Kudos.
The longest stretch.
We're all very proud of you, Brandon.
The Cowboys can't do that.
Everybody needs to head on over and subscribe to the Birds versus Boys podcast. Kevin Messina and Aidan Powers do a great job. They're two of the very, very, very best. We love them. We appreciate them. Thank you both so much for hanging out. This was really fun. We'll have to do it again when the Cowboys host the Eagles in a few weeks' time.
Please, we're gonna have to, and we have to somehow get you up here for a game, RJ.
Agree.
I don't know. I mean, about that, like if I
What do you mean
visit
you don't
everywhere
know?
on
You
Earth,
committed to this before.
no, but like if I visit everywhere on Earth and not Philadelphia, like I'd be all right. You know what I mean? Like
you can come stay with me. I live 45 minutes out of the city, beautiful area. You can come hang with us.
I know it's beautiful. I see all your Instagram posts, Kevin. You live in a wonderful part of the country. Like, I mean, I swear to you must be picking, apples out of the orchard in your backyard. I mean, geez, it's gorgeous over there.
So you can come stay with me, and we can do a live stream from here. We'll all get together up here.
That's fair. Actually, right before y'all leave, predictions on who wins, please. Final score and whatnot.
And
Aidan,
you're forgetting the other part of it too.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Stats is waiting and being patient, so he's awesome. Aidan, final score, please.
I think the Eagles win. I do think it'll be a shootout of sorts. I think we need to stop at the end. I'll go 30-24 Eagles.
I'm going to go 27-24 Cowboys. Somehow find a way to hit a field goal at the end to win it.
Okay, so Aidan, you have the Eagles winning and covering. Obviously, Kevin, you have them losing outright. You're right, Brandon. I forgot. Aidan, I did tell you, so I hope you told Kevin. Part of the tradition here on the NFC East Mixtape is every episode, Brandon, Rachel, and I add a song to our recurring NFC East Mixtape playlist. And every time we have a guest, they get to add a song as well. That means you each get to add a song. It can be any song you want. Doesn't have to be related to the game or the week or the time of year or whatever. Aidan, your song choice for our playlist is what and why?
Real quick, I want it to be known I thought about this long and hard on the way to the gym.
And I will be let this known that Aidan did not tell me about this.
Yeah, it's a lie. I put the screenshot of my conversation with RJ into our Birds vs. Boys group text and told him to look for a song. So that is not you. But on the way to the gym, I was just cycling through all my songs to choose one. And I actually looked up the playlist on Spotify to see what you guys had so far. Great variety on the playlist. It's awesome. I'll probably just add the playlist to my Spotify. I will do Think Fast by Dominic Fike.
Okay. By the way, Aidan, if you can text me these after, just so because I'm gonna forget. So if you can text me y'all's submissions, and I'll add them after we're done. Appreciate that. K-Mess, your song choice and why?
I'm gonna go A-OK just because the vibes were so strong with that song in Philadelphia.
Wow.
And
that feels like
since the song and the song did not take them to the end, and we need Philadelphia to lose again. I'm kind of doing a little bit reverse psychology jinx.
Wow.
Here.
I know y'all are all Phillies fans, so I don't mean to bag on you, KMS, but it's so funny to me that Philadelphia fans are like, oh, we have a powerful home field advantage because we just all like to sing and be loud. It's it's okay.
They statistically have the best winning percentage.
They literally had a no-hitter thrown against them at the building last year in the World Series.
Okay, and yet still they have one of the best home, the best home field in playoff baseball, statistically.
4 losses at that. Ever in the past 2 years.
They lost 2 games that they could have won each of them to go to the World Series. They lost them both.
Enough Phillies.
I'm not going to argue about that. I'll think about that every day for the rest of my life.
Enough.
Aidan did say that those 2 losses were the worst stretch of losses in his Philadelphia sports fandom career. Not the Super Bowl. It was what just happened.
It was worse than the Super Bowl.
There are a lot to choose from, Aidan. So, respect on isolating those 2. Thank you all so much for the time. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be sure to add your songs to the playlist.
Go Cowboys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Brandon, do you like the song A-OK? Or was that an Alec?
No, I like it. No, it's Bryson Stott.
I'm sorry, you're right. Well, all the Phillies kind of blend together. It's like there's 25 people and then Bryce Harper at a certain point.
I didn't mean to say that you should know better. I'm just saying.
Right. No. We want to be accurate. Well, if there's anyone who knows better, who knows anything about anything, it is the incomparable, the eclectic, the ravishing, and the beautiful. He smells fine, I think. I don't know that either one of us could verify that, at least based off of our personal friendship with him. Rob Stats Guerrera from the Gold Standard Network. Stats, how the hell are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I was a little worried where you were going with that intro, because if you're going to me for musical taste, you're the 38-year-old.
We learned that a few weeks ago, Stats. We learned that 4 songs.
Yeah, that is true. My musical tastes are frozen in time. I'm definitely like a full-blown dad when it comes to that. I don't know what's cool or hip, but I am prepared
fine.
today.
Stats, you have gotten a bigger welcome in the crowd than either Brandon or I. So how does that make you feel?
Like normal. Good job. That's appropriate.
I do want to let the crowd know that when we were planning this show, really when I was planning this show, Brandon was kind of just hanging out. And I said, hey, let's get Stats on. And then I told Stats, I was really excited. I said, hey, will you come on the mixtape to kind of close things out, whatever this? He was like, well, why? Like, why would I be here? So
I still don't know why I'm here.
You're here to serve as an impartial party. You heard right now, because you got here on time, that Aidan and Kevin each picked the Eagles and Cowboys respectively. And I think you can imagine who Brandon and I are going to pick. So we needed like an impartial judge. We needed an arbiter here to kind of, set the record straight. We couldn't have a 2-2 tie at the end of this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I, for weeks, RJ, and especially leading up to Niners Cowboys, heard you say that you feared the 49ers. And I have to say, I know exactly where you're coming from, because right now I fear the Philadelphia Eagles. All they do is win. All they do.
That was your
is
song,
win.
by the way, last time, in case you forgot.
Jalen Hurts is banged up. They don't look as good as they did they still win the games. All right. Take it from somebody whose team has lost 3 straight. There is an art to winning close games, playing dirty. The Eagles, they know how to do it, man. They look far more battle tested than my 49ers right now. I'll say that.
Just like the Jimmy G 49ers, just win, right? Just win. Just find a way to win. No,
by the way,
very quickly, along that note, Caleb asked in the chat if you ever jumped in the lake, Stats. Can you please explain what that was and then answer it? Because this was a you and Brandon thing from the original Oddcast. May it rest in peace. This was something that y'all had that you never did fulfill.
So what it was if Jimmy Garoppolo took a snap for the 49ers in 2022, I would jump in the lake. And that, included kneel downs, whatever the case may be. And of course, we all know Trey Lance got hurt in week 2. Jimmy Garoppolo took over. He did take a snap. Now, during that season, because he's a very magnanimous, handsome, wise man, Brandon said, if the Eagles make the Super Bowl, he would let me off the hook. And also I got laid off. So
I think I said if they won the Super Bowl, but yes, we can obviously, it has been rectified in my mind with what everything has happened.
It's also worth mentioning that Stats lives in an incredibly cold climate. I don't want to dox you, Stats, and say where,
right.
But like a lake for you around.
It was never about
it's not safe.
It was never about making Stats unsafe. To be clear, though, or like tortured. That was never it was like for fun. It wasn't about like you have to be punished,
right?
And you have to suffer. No, it was just about like you have to do something silly.
Stats, Mello says can't ignore Stats. This is a good take about the Eagles. All they do is win. Kevin says the Eagles do win the games except when they play Dak. Dak Prescott is 7-3 against the Eagles. How much do you put into that? Again, you're kind of our independent person here, Stats, to filter all this stuff through.
Well, I'm not as, up on the nitty gritty, but I know that there were some situations with Dak where there were some backups and maybe things, you weren't getting like peak Cowboys against peak Eagles. That is a thing, but I look more at how these teams are playing right now. And I just feel like Philly is ready for whatever Dallas throws at him. If it's a game, Dallas could come out. Maybe they get a pick 6 early, which I feel like, my God, this defense gets every single week. Like nobody scores as much as the Cowboys defense. But like, you're not going to rattle the Eagles. You're just not. Whatever happens in the game, like they're just going to keep coming at you. It's like Rocky when he's fighting Drago. Drago goes in the corner and he says, it's like fighting a piece of iron. I feel like that's what Philly is right now.
It's funny you use Drago as a reference, given the Philly, part of this. But by the way, the Lunar Cowboy stat says that you hate the Cowboys more than the Eagles. Can you verify that?
Yeah. I don't really have that much animosity to the Eagles. I hate the Cowboys. I always will.
Well, there's more of a history there.
Yeah,
obviously.
Well, that's the Eagles' fault, not the Cowboys' fault. I mean, Like, be a part of historical games. That's all I'm saying.
I can't change that.
I agree with you, Stats. Something I've been telling Brandon for weeks is I wanted to see the Eagles put in like a 14-0 hole just to kind of see how they would respond. Like, obviously, I wanted to see it, but I also, like, from a experimental standpoint, wanted to see like what do they do? Like you have used the word front runners to describe the 49ers on your shows at the Gold Standard Network, which I'm never going to say about the Niners because they are the Cowboys' daddies. But the Eagles are not, because they fell down 14-3 last week against the Commanders. And I was live tweeting that score, obviously, as the Cowboys were beating the Rams and thinking like, this is it. They're going to slip. They're going to slip. And then crap, they just don't. Like, they find a way to get whatever they need at whatever moment in time. I do think that that's a fair hallmark of theirs, Brandon.
I think the Eagles have been put in a bad spot by themselves in terms of the expectations. They were so good last year that like anything they do this year, when they do something good, it's like, yeah, that's what they were supposed to do. So you don't get like credit for it. It's just, yeah, that's what we wanted you to do. So when you win, it's like, okay, nice, fine. But if you lose, if you don't, then it's like a disaster, like when they lost to the Jets. So they're kind of in a tough spot in that way. I think this is largely the same team that they were last year. I'm not saying identically. They obviously lost some key players. They've regressed in some key areas. You're seeing that with the turnover differential. I think they're like -3 on the season right now. But think about that. Think about how they're -3 right now, and they're the only one-loss team in the NFL. Like, they haven't even played their A game yet, which is encouraging from a standpoint. If okay, maybe there is another gear to hit here, and we're about to see it. They have to, because of this gauntlet coming up. Or it's that maybe they can't hit that gear because it's not really there, and that's not the team they are. That's what we're about to kind of find out with this stretch coming up. But that possibility, I think, does exist, that they haven't played their A game yet, in part because they haven't really like needed to. And if they do, watch out.
I agree with that. They have a negative turnover differential. Jalen Hurts has a million turnovers himself. Like, they're playing, in some respects, poor football, but they have the best record in the NFL. Like, it's so frustrating and maddening and dumb, and I don't like it. Stats, we have gone through 4 kind of main bullet points of discussion here tonight. We have one more left, but we need you once again to kind of serve as the arbiter of it all. So the question, or the frame, is the potential impact player we are not talking about for this game is, and Stats, you can let us know if this person does or does not qualify. Like, you're somebody who can say like, oh, that isn't, that person, you can't use that person, whatever.
Just crap all over someone's answer.
Well, that's what Stats is here to do. He's here to crap. So, I mean, like, get ready, nice. Stats. Stats, who would you like to go first? This is your floor.
BLG, you go first.
Well, I mean, as of today, we are finding out that Cam Jurgens might not start at right guard, as was originally expected. He's eligible to be activated from injured reserve. So the Eagles quite conceivably could be starting not Suba Opeta, who has been filling in for Cam Jurgens as the Eagles starting right guard and has played poorly, but rookie Tyler Steen, who was a healthy scratch, a third-round pick, number 65 overall in the draft. Was again a healthy scratch until Jurgens got hurt and was placed on IR. So he went from really not even being trusted at all. He was like the 9th or 10th offensive lineman on the team to starting in the lineup. He did look pretty good in a very, very small sample size against the Commanders last week. It was 6 snaps, but there's potential there. There's also potential for things to go wrong, because that's really intimidating. The fact that he's going to be making, potentially, we don't know for sure, his first NFL start against the Cowboys. So the fact that just came up today, I think we're not talking about that. And I think that's a huge deal, because if the Eagles win this game, it's going to be because why they win a lot of their games. And that's because they control the line of scrimmage, and they can't have their rookie being a weak point. And potentially, just maybe, if Tyler Steen is as good as they hope, they can kind of get their run game going, which has not been going with Sua Opeta struggling.
Well, is that a satisfactory answer?
Because of my years of NFL debate experience and my credentials and my, esteemed judginess, I will allow this, because number one, no one is talking about Tyler Steen, so it definitely
that's true. It's factually true.
And impact isn't necessarily good. It could be bad. So he might be, a turnstile there at right guard that allows the Cowboys into the backfield every play. So I think it absolutely fits the requirements.
Yeah, I was going to say before I let you answer, Brandon, but I talk a lot, so I cut myself off, was you could go anywhere you wanted. And you could have picked a Cowboy, I think, like somebody who you're worried about, which you kind of effectively did. Not that you named anybody specifically. I'm going to go with an optimistic spin, if you'll allow me, Stats. Marquise Bell. The Cowboys have had Leighton Vander Esch on injured reserve for 2 games now. What? I mean, he's literally one of the highest.
Why are we scoffing?
He's literally.
No, you're right. No one is talking about this.
I didn't scoff at your no one's talking about thing. That's the whole purpose of this exercise, is to introduce interesting storylines that people need to hear, because no one's talking about.
I just think it's funny because you're right. No one is talking about this.
So you're laughing and you think it's hilarious that I'm answering the question?
You're right. You hit it on the head.
You think 4 is a hilarious answer to 2 + 2? Like, what is the beef here? Anyway, as I was saying, the Cowboys have had Leighton Vander Esch on injured reserve for the last 2 games, and that was a really troubling thing because when Leighton Vander Esch missed time at the end of last regular season, they got ran all over. I mean, they could not handle anything. Everybody thinks that Micah Parsons, obviously is the most important defender on the Cowboys, but as it relates to their ability to defend the run, not that they're even like really good at it, but like what helps them not be even worse has been Leighton Vander Esch over the last, kind of the Dan Quinn era. And Marquise Bell has filled in admirably for him. I mean, the Cowboys only had 2 traditional linebackers on their 53-man roster, and Marquise Bell is a converted safety, and he has become, a linebacker in Dan Quinn's mold. We've seen Dan Quinn kind of do this with lots of players. He tried with Keanu Neal. He's done it with Jaron Curse. Marquise Bell is now him and that person. Marquise Bell, I think, is a low-key factor in terms of clogging up the middle. We know the Eagles love to run the ball. I'm not saying he's absolutely going to stop that, but I do think he will inhibit it to a degree more than a lot of other players have been capable that are playing for the Cowboys with regards to their matchups against the Eagles.
I feel like BLG's pick had a little more juice because he's on the offensive line, and that is so clearly central to what Philly does. A linebacker, yes, impactful. But if I had to pick a winner in this debate, I thought you gave a good answer, RJ, but I got to go with DLG.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry. Had to be done.
I regret saying that you smelled nice. Because I don't even know if that's true. It was just an assumption that I gave you the benefit of the doubt on.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm
actually mad at Brandon. So,
wow.
Yeah. Thanks for Javon Hargrave. That guy's
hey, that's not my fault. What do you mean?
What does he do good? I'm still waiting for it.
The passer.
I think the proper grammatical word would have been, what does he do well?
What does he do at all? How about that? They're paying that guy a fortune, and I don't even know what number he wears. That's how little he's on camera.
Really? I haven't been paying attention to him specifically. He has not been producing, huh?
He's got like 2 sacks, but like, honestly, there are entire stretches of the game where you don't even know that he's out there on the field. So I'm mad at you for that. I want to know, is Chase Young, how does Chase Young look? Because you played him twice.
Yeah. Are
you giving me another pile of rocks here?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because we should address that because we didn't talk about that on the Tuesday episode. It happened naturally, as every move does somehow, right after we record the NFC East mixtape. And I said on the podcast, I believe you'll back me up on this, RJ, that I was like, they don't need to just trade Chase Young to trade him, especially after trading Sweat. If you want to trade one of those 2 guys because you think you can only re-sign one of them, sure. Yeah. Especially Sweat, I think, was the one who made sense to let go of in terms of just banking on potential upside moving forward. Now, Chase Young has the injury history and everything there too. The Commanders might have a better sense of that than I do. I would hope so. There's also the fact that maybe they had an inclination that he wasn't going to re-sign there because they didn't pick up his option. And maybe he's like, F you, I'm not going to re-sign here.
But this is the weird thing. Sorry not to cut you off.
No.
The 49ers are getting a lot of praise because they're trading a 3rd-round comp pick to get Chase Young. And if Chase Young leaves the 49ers, they get a comp pick for him. So why wouldn't Washington just let him leave and take the comp pick themselves?
That's not guaranteed. The comp pick thing is there's a lot of factors that go into that. Obviously, like it means basically if you're getting a comp pick, you're punting on free agency to some extent. I don't think the Commanders want to do that where they're at potentially with new ownership. They might want to be spending. I also think that this idea that the 49ers can easily just get a 3rd-round pick, contemporary pick for Chase Young is a little bit too much. Like 3rd-round pick's a high level. That's basically like the contract that Javon Hargrave got, or like a quarterback contract. Like, do you think Chase Young's really getting that kind of contract even coming off this year? Like, I don't know about that. So I think that element is a little overblown.
I have to side with BLG on this. Doesn't that bother you? Like, doesn't that hurt your feelings? Like to hear those words?
Not if it's accurate and fair and objective.
By the way, Stats, I feel like by your own metrics, this is a good deal for the Niners. I don't know why you're complaining. In fact, I saw a clip that you shared from the Gold Standard Network that you have 3 principles that you abide by in your life when it comes to buying something. Number 1, do you really, correct me if I'm wrong in terms of paraphrasing this, do you want
Let
this?
him say it.
Well, fine. I wanted to prove to him that I saw his clip. But Stats, what are your 3 principles of buying something?
3 questions. If you can answer yes to 2 out of the 3 questions, you will never regret the purchase. Number 1, do you love it? Number 2, do you need it? Number 3, is it a good deal? If you can answer 2 of the 3, if you love it and you need it, who cares if it's a good deal, right? If you need it and it's a good deal, you don't have to love it. And
that
if
was
you
what this fell into for you, because you said you didn't love the Chase Young deal, but the Niners needed it and it was a good deal.
Yes, because he does have there's an article that he freelances a little too much, and obviously the injury thing, and he was available for a reason. So that is, I don't love it, but you definitely need him, and you're basically giving up a 3rd-round comp pick, and you're paying him $500,000 this year. It's absolutely worth it for the 49ers.
Stats, you have filibustered enough in the name of the Dallas Cowboys daddies, the San Francisco 49ers. But if anybody does want to hear your work on the Niners, they can follow and subscribe to the Gold Standard Network. We'll allow you a moment to plug away in a second. But before you do, please give us a prediction, because, Brandon, I don't want to assume or speak for you, but I imagine you're taking the Eagles.
Are you? I thought you said Brandon. I thought.
Yeah, I was letting Brandon say this. I'm setting up your prediction, Stats. That
I want to hear Stats' prediction. You don't want to assume
Stats has to be the tiebreaker. Look, Stats, look how he wants to steal your thunder. Like, this was supposed to be your, I was setting you up to be the decisive, vote. And Brandon,
so you want me to give my prediction now?
Yes, I will. So Kevin,
I thought you were setting up Stats.
Kevin picked the Cowboys. We have to give our picks in order to set Stats up. How obvious is this? Kevin took the Cowboys. Aidan took the Eagles. I'll say right now, Brandon and I are going to do TGI football on Friday. The Cowboys are my lock of the week. They're 3-point underdogs. I'm taking the Cowboys. They're my lock of the week. I'm getting points. I'm confident in them, obviously.
How are you doing in your locks of the week, by the way?
Does that really matter here? Like, I mean,
it does.
I'm taking the Cowboys.
Tell everyone you have the worst lock of the week record out of everyone.
There are 3 of us. I mean, it's not like I'm last out of like 65 people.
500.
Anyway, I'm taking the Cowboys. They're my lock of the week at +3. I'm obviously taking the Cowboys to win outright. So those are my thoughts. Those are my opinions. Brandon, what is your prediction so that Stats can have the spotlight on him?
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I've gone back and forth on this. I think it's a coin flip game, which is represented by the spread. It's a 3-point spread, has not moved as far as I've seen when I've looked at our good friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook this week. I've gone back and forth. I think about the CeeDee Lamb on I don't know who in the slot for the Eagles a lot. That's a big issue. I think about how Josh Sweat could potentially be going up against Asim Richards if Tyron Smith can't play.
His name is pronounced Awesome.
Awesome. Sorry, I didn't know that. Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. A 3rd string, in any case, a 3rd string left tackle potentially. We'll see how it goes with Tyron Smith. I think it's hard to overlook the fact that Jalen Hurts, as Stats pointed out, just wins 23-3 in the last 26 games he started.
He lost when he started against Dak Prescott's Cowboys, but that's insignificant.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And again, also a very different team than they were back then because they were starting.
Right. But it doesn't fit the narrative, so we're leaving it out because we want to.
Jalen Reagor over AJ Brown at this point, which is a huge upgrade. I think I have to go with the Eagles. And I don't want to just do it because I feel like I have to, because what am I going to do? Not pick the Eagles. So I have really thought about it long and hard, but I think at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts just played his best game of the season last week and one of the best games of his career. And I think that the Cowboys, when they've been good this year, they've been really good. But when they have not been good, they have been very bad. So I think it's possible that the Eagles could punch the Cowboys in the mouth and they can't handle it.
To be clear, the Cowboys have been very bad, a grand total of twice, once of which was against perhaps the best team in the NFL, even though they're not playing that way right now. Stats.
A team that has lost 3 games in a row since then.
So the Niners are trash now, Stats, according to Brandon. Remember the deference that I showed you as opposed to BLG when you make your prediction. But we do need a decisive vote. Everything's tied 2-2. This is tribal council. Jeff Probst, he needs you to just say it out loud. You're not even going to go write it and put it in the lectern, Stats.
And also, who you say will actually win the game. So this is a lot of power.
Well, then if I want to throw it, I would pick the Cowboys just because I need the Eagles to lose a freaking game.
Sure, of course.
I think that the Eagles have more paths to victory than the Cowboys. I think for the Cowboys to win this game, you're going to need at least one defensive score. You're going to need your defense to play out of this world. And yes, the Cowboys looked very good last week, but there were some plays that kind of like that game snowballed on the Rams very, very quickly with the block punt. and the safety, and then the big kick return. The Cowboys got another touchdown. I don't know if Dallas is necessarily that good, but I feel like if they're going to win, they're going to need a defensive score. So I'm going to go with Philly in this one, unfortunately. Although I do think the Cowboys should be a little desperate in this game, because if Philly wins, forget the NFC East. Like, it is a wrap if Philly wins, because then the Eagles would be 8-1, the Cowboys would be 5-3, and Philly would have at least one game on them. So I think like the Cowboys should have a mode of desperation here that maybe Philly doesn't have. So that might help, but I got to go Philly. I'm sorry, RJ.
I really don't care, Stats. Your opinion has never meant anything to me about anything in life. So, I mean, whatever. Three rules about buying something. I already forgot what it was. I mean, like, this, whatever. No, I mean, Stats. Look, the Eagles are a great team. Like, it's obviously understandable to believe in them. And I mean, but I do think this is the tightest game that the Cowboys and the Eagles will have played against one another in quite some time. Obviously, they each had a backup quarterback in one game last year. The second meeting in 2021 was the infamous Week 18. They were both locked into their respective playoff positions, and so it should be fun. It should be epic. And there's obviously a lot on the line for both teams, because Stats, as we mentioned before you got here, the flip side of things, if Dallas wins, Philly you're sitting on 3 losses in a row during the Niners bye week, and it stinks, I would imagine. If the Eagles have to sit on a loss during their bye week to come out of it just to head to Kansas City and have all the Chiefs fans, wave their Super Bowl winning flags and jerseys and patches and everything in front of their faces, and then play the Niners and the Bills and the Cowboys again, like, it could snowball on them, just as much. So yeah, tell both sides of the story, at least, Stats. Jeez.
That is fair. You know what? That is totally legitimate. But I don't know. They have so much freaking talent. They're so good. And I'm so sick and tired of people saying, well, Brandon Ayuk can't do this because they just double team him, and he can't catch a pass in the second half. There was nothing the 49ers could have done. A.J. Brown has 125 yards in 6 straight games. You don't think he's getting double teamed? So I'm sorry. There's a lot of weird frustrations that are just boiling right below the surface for me.
Well, if people do want to hear them on a regular basis, they can follow and subscribe to the Gold Standard Network. Stats, please give us all the plugs, all the socials, everything, so that everyone can find your work. You obviously are an incredible NFL mind. I've said it before. You're the best host of anything. I use the word lectern. Put Stats behind a lectern, wherever it is, and he will kick ass. He is the best person I know to host anything about football, politics, food, wine, desserts, hors d'oeuvres. Stats, please let us know where everybody can find you.
Oh, thank you for that, RJ. I appreciate it. We're the Gold Standard 49ers Podcast Network. You can search for us on YouTube, Gold Standard Network. We pop right up. We do a 5-minute show in the morning. That's just 5 minutes on the news of the day, get you caught up on everything you need to know. We stream live every single weekday. You'll find long-form shows there as well. I'm on all the socials at Stats on Fire, and you can find the network. GSN 49ers is where you can find our network. Please like and subscribe. Tell one friend, and thank you guys very much.
Stats Mello says that we need more live shows and we need more stats. Before we get done with Stats, you know the drill. You've done this before, Stats. You have to pick a song for us to add to the NFC East Mixtape playlist. Last time, bit of a fail. All right, I'm just going to be straight up with you. And Brandon didn't prep you for this. So Stats was just like, well, the Niners are winning games, so I'm going to go with All I Do Is Win by DJ Khaled.
That was a good pivot. It was on short notice.
I mean, cool, I guess, but we gave you a heads up, Stats. Yes. So I hope you came prepared.
Well, the only thing I didn't do, I didn't look at what's already on the playlist. So I apologize if this is already on there. And again, I also apologize for being a 38-year-old suburban dad. So my musical tastes are a little rough.
Bruce Springsteen.
No, I'm not a boss. Not a Springsteen guy. Can I go Lil Boo Thing by Paul Russell?
Wow.
Yeah. Wonderful, Stats. What a great.
What's wrong with that? That's a good song.
No, I'm saying it's a good.
He likes
it. It's a great pick. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Why did you laugh? You laughed. I felt like there was some derision.
It's just funny. I've heard you say a lot of words in our friendship. I've never heard you say Lil Boo Thing. I mean,
Lil Boo Thing. You know, I get it. The whiteness is very apparent.
Actually, Stats, I know that I said this would be the last thing, but I have to get this in here. The Lunar Cowboy notes that because Stats and Brandon, you have each picked the Eagles and I have picked the Cowboys, that I am in the icebox. I don't have the ice
I was going to say, thankfully not.
Effect, but I am in the proverbial icebox, which is a throwback to the original look ahead. Hey, Grizz agrees with y'all, says I hate that audio. So You guys are just haters. The origin of that, and Brandon forgot this, was
it's too long.
it's Burr, like BRR, like when you're cold, and B for Brandon, R for Rob, and R for RJ. It unites us, and y'all hate it.
All right, let's
remember that.
Have his life back.
That was the weirdest thing ever.
Enjoy your Icebox stats.
I will.
Be
our little boo thing.
Love you guys. Thank
Later.
you.
Love you too, pal.
All right, Brandon. The votes have been cast. Time to snuff a torch and get out of here. Appropriately after the best episode of Survivor in quite some time on Wednesday this week.
Yeah, no spoilers, but very good episode.
Right. Any final thoughts before we offer our songs and get out of here?
Well, we should probably make our bet. Maybe you'll do that in TGI football. Let's talk about that and come up with that so that way it kind of gives people more of a reason, to really, we're stringing you along here. It's like, not only do you have to watch the regular NFC East Mixtape episode, not only do you have to watch the live episode, but then you also have to check out TGI football as well.
How about this? In case anybody doesn't know, Brandon and I also co-host a show on the SB Nation NFL show feed, where we used to co-host the show with Stats, and that's how we met him and know him. Yeah, everybody might not know that, but and so we'll be recording that on Friday with Steven Serta, and we'll be recording at 10 a.m. Central, right, on Friday. So between now and then, if anybody wants to tweet at us or tag us on Instagram, whatever, at Brandon Gowton, at RJ Ochoa, suggestions on wagers that Brandon and I can make with one another on this game. 2 years ago, Brandon changed his profile picture on Twitter to the Blog of the Boys logo. And then he changed it to Jeremy Pena after the Astros beat the Phillies in the World Series as well.
Yeah, no one actually cared about that one.
I know, but it was funny for me.
That was me getting off easy, honestly. A lot of people, I don't think, understood what it was. They were like, what?
Right. The Blog on the Boys was a lot funnier. But last year we didn't make a bet because there were backup quarterbacks, and I don't recall making a bet.
For the first one, you had to wear beat Dallas.
Oh, that's right. I made a
the second one. I don't think we did for the second one.
We didn't, because you didn't want to, because the Hurts thing was fresh and it was awkward, and
also the Eagles didn't. The game didn't matter, because again,
it totally mattered. They were playing for the 1 seed and they lost.
It didn't matter as much.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, they still lost and they still won the 1 seed.
Anyway, if anybody has an idea on what Brandon and I should do, at RJ Ochoa on Twitter or Instagram, at Brandon Gowton on Twitter or Instagram, let us know your ideas. We will talk about it on TGI Football. Oh, I like this one from Grizz. Winner gets a secret tweet on the other's account. Those are always good. That's been something we do across the SB Nation expert picks, and I paid for that very dearly last year when I lost to Fooch. That was not fun. So let us know your suggestions. Are you ready for songs, Brandon? Now that
Ryan
we've cast
Massey asked, by the way, if we text during the game, and no, we don't, because we're both working. Honestly, it's not even.
Yeah,
no, I can't. I don't text anyone. I mean, maybe I'll respond to a text or so, but I'm working during the game.
Yeah,
I'm not really
I agree with that.
People.
It's a hectic day usually.
It's not fun. We're probably it's funny because we do this because we like it a lot, to watch the games a lot, but we're also probably some of the least fun people to probably watch the game with because of you're working.
That's a good kind of peeling back of the curtain. And we both I imagine you have your kind of operation and your rhythm, you know what I mean? You kind of have you have to do this and that and this and that, whatever.
My staff too.
Right, exactly. And so we have, there's a lot of communication that's happening, but obviously casual, man, did you see that pick that Jerron Bland hit on Jalen Hurts? Your team sucks. That's not happening.
No.
That's what the NFC East Mixtape is for.
Right. That's the other thing. You have to save it for the show.
Right. Okay. So Rachel, again, always on time, submitted her song for the second episode this week. She went with Nuck If You Buck by Crime Mob. And she specifically said, I felt it was fitting for Eagles-Cowboys. So a great selection by Rachel.
Good selection.
Are you ready to go? Or do you? So I suggested this on the first episode this week, us doing live covers, or not covers, but live editions of songs, because we were doing this live. And I forgot to tell everybody that. So my bad. But that would have made it really hard.
Yeah, it narrows it down too much. I think you can do that if you want to, but
I'm going to do that.
You're narrowing it down too much if you're making everyone do that.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with a Billy Joel classic, and it is from the album that he recorded live at, I don't know if it was recorded, but performed live at Shea Stadium, Miami 2017 by Sir William Joel. That is the song that I am going with, the live version of that. Everybody, if you want to hear it, you can check out the NFC East Mixtape playlist on Apple Music or Spotify. Rated.
Not familiar with that song off the top of my head. Maybe I've heard it.
I've seen the lights go out on Broadway. That's how it starts, and it's wonderful.
I'm gonna go with probably a song definitely a song we've talked about before. Now you got to get pumped up. This is a big game, so you got to have a pump up song. And what better to listen to than a song you may be familiar with from your high school basketball teams pregame workouts?
Is this "Till I Collapse" by Eminem?
"Till I Collapse" by Eminem.
Yeah. That is the high school basketball team, like opening warm up, doing layups, like everybody bouncing it off the glass to each other. What a great select. That's my favorite selection you've ever had.
Boom.
Wow. By the way, Grizz said nice twang on that voice, RJ, about my Billy Joel impression. So good for me. All right. Everybody, this show will be accessible on both the Blog on the Boys podcast and Bleeding Green Nation podcast networks, as well as both YouTube channels. Obviously, we're streaming it live on the Blog on the Boys YouTube and Twitch channel. Brandon will do another live show, obviously, whenever the Cowboys and Eagles face off again next, and whenever people demand it. Everybody should tweet at Kiss changed his handle. What is it now? I think it's the Michael Kist.
I don't know.
I think he changed it to the Michael Kist. So if he didn't,
he's probably the only Michael Kist on Twitter, right?
I'm sorry to whoever holds this handle if it's not him, but everybody needs to tweet at the Michael Kist and say, we want more live NFC East mixtapes. Tell him he is the audio boss. And so if you annoy him, he will make it happen. Yeah, at the Michael Kist. Everybody tweeted him, say, we want more live NFC East mixtapes. Tell him, command him, yell at him, scream at him, annoy him, pester him until he makes it happen. So
he had to distance himself from the NFL because he's, his F1 coverage. He can't be Michael Kist NFL if he's like the F1 guy now.
If you think that he's distancing himself from the NFL for F1 on Twitter, wait till you check out Kiss TikTok page.
I've heard. I don't even want to do that. But thanks to everyone in the comments, by the way, who showing love down there. Thanks to my parents for tuning in.
Let's see here. Lonely Catman says, thanks guys, great show. Mr. Gowton says, great show. Grizz says, thanks guys, love the BLG RJ dynamic. Just give these guys a raise and a live show. Again, tweet it Kist.
We have to do the live show. Have to.
Tal on J13 says, thanks for the show, you two.
In person,
great friend. Thanks, guys. Entertaining show. Matthew says, thanks for the show. I'm not going to say the last part. Conan says, thanks, guys. Enjoy the game. Brian says, thank you. Yeah, I think we're rooting for a great game. And obviously, for our teams, but we want to see something fun.
We just want to see a good game.
I
when
hope
you get
so.
the NFL hat on, we don't even care who wins. Just want to see a good game.
Well, no, get the NFC East hat on. That's what this is. This is truly the NFC East.
Does the NFC East actually have a real logo?
It's the one for the podcast. What are you talking about? Does it have one? It's absolutely for real. All right, Brandon, let's leave as you give us the introductory melody till I Collapse in your baritone voice.
No.
You can do it. Come on.
No. I can't do intro.
Yeah. Okay, let's go here.
I can't do it.
Okay, instead of that, tell us your favorite kind of ice cream.
Mint chocolate chip, green. Has to be green. If it's not green, it's not right.